Okay, now we're going to look at making a black t-shirt. To make a black t-shirt, you have to do one more step to this process. So let's duplicate my white t-shirt and then go Image, Adjustments, Invert. Okay. Essentially, this is kind of what you need, minus the black on the outside edge. So this is what my process looks like. What I'm going to be doing is taking and erasing back on this layer. Okay. So the thing I like to do is make a layer in between here to house white. So I'm just going to fill this new layer with white. That way, when I start cutting back on this one, it goes all the way to white. So this is where you got to repeat that process one more time of going around the outside edge. This time I'm leaving an outside edge of an outside edge. It's really hard to explain how this process works. Just pretend for as I doodle around the outside edge, I'll tell you. Basically, there's an emulsion that goes on the screen, and the emulsion is sensitive to light. So what I'm doing here is I'm blocking light from going to the emulsion using a transparency. So the transparency is kind of like the sunscreen to the I forgot what the actual technical name of the palette thing that you're using, but it's this big, huge emulsion dipped screen. Okay, and the emulsion blocks ink. So anytime you have no emulsion, ink can pass through the screen onto the t-shirt. So by getting this black area, this is where white ink is going to be. And it's kind of an ink, it's kind of a paint. It's kind of a cross between ink and paint. All I know is you get it on your hands and you're pretty well kind of screwed for a little bit because it doesn't come off at all. Not as bad as offset press ink, but pretty bad. Not to mention you get it on your clothes, being that it's it's an ink that goes on your clothes. You're pretty much hit there too. So you can see I'm leaving this nice outside coloring book image thing around the outside edge. Now, technically, you don't have to do that either, but I found it to be a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So it all depends what style you're trying to create. With this, without the outside extra edge, really, it's kind of hard to tell where the t-shirt ends and where he begins, especially in photos. But that's a good thing now down below. Think about this. I want it to kind of fade into a t-shirt. So here, I'm going to choose to go like this. That's going to give it a nice fade-in look to that t-shirt. See how it's all broken up? So technically, this stuff looks better on a black t-shirt. In a minute, I'll show you exactly what it's going to look like on the black t-shirt. I'll show you how to preview it. I think this is the hardest concept to get to a student too. I mean, they have to think negative, and it really confuses them. All right, so this I'm going to rename black shirt. And how to preview it is you go to this layer right here and fill it with black now. And I guess you don't even have to do that. But yeah, because I painted this white. That's right. So here is what it's going to look like on a black t-shirt. Ready? Image, adjustments, invert. Ooh, ah. I know. Pretty sweet, right? So that's exactly what it's going to look like on a black t-shirt. Let's kind of zoom in on all the details. Again, if you don't like the edge or line being presented here, if you have it in black mode, you can kind of break this up a little bit more by painting some black. So if you find that line a little too thick, especially for the, I don't know, the profile, again, line width isn't kind of important in this area. So if you don't want it so thick, you can cut that back just a little bit using black. But you have to make sure you invert it back. So they know it's hair. I mean, all it does is have to have a line going around every once in a while. It doesn't have to be so coloring book-like. But this gives you the chance of, you know, kind of touching up things. There we go. Maybe a little less right here, so I can recoup his neck. Perfect. Okay, so remember, image, adjustments, invert. This is what you need for it to become a black t-shirt. If I toggle this off, this is what a white t-shirt looks like. A little bit cleanup of our process here is make sure your black and white shirt are showing, and take all these other layers, hold shift, and group them together. You won't be able to group your background layer, so you can hold command over the top of that, deselect it. We'll call this process. Or how about workflow? Yeah. There we go. Okay, now in the next video, I got to show you how to lay it out in InDesign. That way, if you want to make a bigger Frankenstein, you can.